Welcome everyone, I'm Mike Indegaro. I'm the Director of Agency Development here at Teikametrics, and this is the Agency Connection. Today I'm sitting down with Stephen Reagan from Marcata. Stephen, welcome.
Thank you.
First want to get a couple of things across, want to understand. Tell us who you are, what Marcata does.
Sure. My name's Stephen Reagan. I'm the co-founder and vice president of strategy and client services at Marcata. We are ultimately tasked with delivering data-centric business solutions for Amazon brands, Amazon sellers, vendors, and hybrid alike. Regardless of sort of how they are set up and how they're working with Amazon, we're working with people who are totally new to very, very mature brands who have been selling for a number of years.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about your background with Amazon. Tell me about your journey.
Sure. So about 9 years ago, right out of college, found myself in more of a data entry type position for a large third-party seller. Several years later, I really found myself running a European arm of that business, focusing primarily on the Amazon Germany. Through that kind of experience, really witnessed how Amazon is evolving and how those changes made their way over to the European marketplaces. And that's really helped me now in Marcata as far as seeing kind of the future of Amazon and what might be coming down the road.
Wow, you're an Amazon veteran.
Yeah, it's been interesting to really see this beast of a marketplace kind of evolve over the last 9 years.
Yeah, I can imagine like what it was 9 years ago when you started. Even I'm sure Seller Central looked exactly the same, but I'm sure the marketplace has really started to rise up.
Oh yeah, I mean you're definitely right about the interface itself. Not much has changed. They seem to keep that intentionally immature, if you will.
Yeah.
But realistically, that's a big value to us as an agency and an opportunity for us to help brands figure it out. And so really by leaning on these number of years of experience on Amazon, we're able to help kind of save the time and the headache that a lot of these brands are running into when it comes time to the basics of Amazon, FBA and fulfillment by Amazon, how that works, all the way to advertising and a real robust strategy around making your products discoverable.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, how are you setting goals with clients? Talk to me about like a typical engagement that Marcata would run through with a client.
I like to say that every brand is in their own unique stage of the Amazon life cycle, and accordingly, they might have very different goals. One of the most exciting things for me is helping these brands figure out what is important or what should be important. Everybody can relate to sales growth, unit sales, conversion rate, things like that, but really how are you going to affect those numbers outside of paying to play on just advertising?
So you guys are really using your channel expertise to almost advise them rather than them saying, I think advertising specifically, like, hey, Stephen, I want a 15% advertising cost of sale. You guys are taking a different approach and saying, this is how you should approach the channel.
Exactly. So, and in particular with the advertising, every campaign that we'll create has its own unique set of goals. And not always is the efficiency of that campaign the number one KPI. So, for example, with a brand new product, I'm just trying to get exposure. We want awareness. We want the education in the Amazon landscape around this brand, around this product. So I'm going to be willing to sacrifice some of that efficiency in exchange for that exposure.
Got it. And how do you know, like, when you take on that strategy of brand awareness and you're really spending ad dollars to get, top placement, when do you know, or like what signals are there to dial back and for you guys to be like, okay, now the brand really cares about profitability? How do you make those decisions?
So we try to define what that sort of terminal velocity is from an awareness and impressions visibility perspective. And really that point comes when there's a viable organic sales volume behind that product. And so that's kind of when we start to chip away at that advertising cost of sale and really hammer on scaling that campaign by kind of reaching outside of the very narrow sort of targeting pool.
I mentioned advertising cost of sale of something that clients pay attention to. In particular, Marcata is working a lot with vendors. Do vendors care a little bit differently about what drives performance than, say, a seller would when it comes to advertising? How do those two different personas think about performance?
Sure. So typically, the vendor clients that we work with, I like to say that they're almost contractually obligated to care about their Amazon business.
I love that.
And, so accordingly, the Amazon business is touching several departments within a given organization. So the great thing about Amazon is you can speak to and create strategies that are going to deliver value to your sales team, your procurement team, planning, marketing, and even operations down to logistical processes and things like that. So, for vendors, it's a lot of the bigger picture mostly. So again, kind of back to the sacrificing some efficiency in exchange for real awareness.
Gotcha.
And building that brand. Sellers tend to be a little more acute in terms of what they're really concerned about. And again, it goes back to that might not be the only sales channel for these brands. So it's just another avenue to sell product. And so they're primarily focused with the obvious ones: sales, conversion rate, session percentage, and things like that.
That's a good point. And last one for you. I know we're talking about vendors and sellers. You hear a lot and you see a lot of, Amazon trying to make that one and, diminishing the line between, who's a vendor and who's a seller. What do you think the next couple of years look like in the marketplace where, it's right now it's technically everyone's selling on the same marketplace, but you still have this concept of vendor versus seller. How do you think that evolves over time? Do you have any perspective on it?
Yeah, I think really in particular the last maybe 18 months, I've noticed a lot of things that give me the sense that Amazon's pushing to make this platform in this marketplace a branded experience. No longer is it a place for people to kind of throw up everything they have and expect some sales. So I think as this gap between the vendor and the seller appears to be shrinking, I see that this brand focus will only continue. And so things like the brand store that are a real big push from Amazon right now, they'll only compound the focus around these types of brand awareness building vehicles on Amazon. And of course, they'll create a full suite of advertisements that you can spend on to get customers there.
Pay to play.
Right,
That's
exactly.
Right. Well, all great stuff, Stephen. I want to thank you again for speaking with me today. Anything you want to leave the viewers with, any resources you can direct our audience to?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Mike.
Yeah, anytime.
And one thing I'll say is it's a scary world out there on Amazon.
Sure is.
Regardless of how big or small you might be. So I would invite everyone to hop over to Marcata.com. We keep a nice blog there where we're giving our take on a lot of these Amazon industry announcements.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you next time.